Whether you're a teacher, a student, or someone who's involved in a profession of some kind, or anybody at all, you're probably interested in learning new skills that you can perform in front of people. Could be learning to write an essay, it could be learning to produce a piece of woodwork in your classroom, it could be learning how to prepare a budget report on an Excel spreadsheet, it could be learning a new circus performance technique. I hope that whatever you're looking to learn and perform, that these ideas from behavioral modification can really help you along in your learning journey. So, chaining refers to the way that we build towards a total behavior. So, in task analysis or behavior analysis, we would break the behavior down into its component parts. So, for example, you might have a chain of behavior called getting ready to go to work. And in this behavioral chain, you may have a shower, have your breakfast, get your laptop and charger, pack your lunch, and leave to go to the train station. All of these things are part of a behavioral chain. You may have also realized that each of those things, in and of themselves, could be behavioral chains. So, taking a shower could involve getting the soap, turning the hot water on, all of those sorts of things. When we're learning to develop a new behavior, it's really important that we think of what's the total behavior that we want here. When I was learning silks, I needed to think, what's the total behavior? In my first lesson, the total behavior was being able to climb the tissue. So we would wrap our right ankle around the tissue, flex our hips, pull our hips in, reach our arms, pull ourselves down and up. Being able to climb became the total behavior, and we were reinforced at each step along the way. Later on, being able to perform a routine has become the target behavior, which consists of a whole range of subsequent behaviors. The important thing to note with chaining is that we reinforce every step along the way. There are two types of chaining, forward chaining and backward chaining. Forward chaining refers to starting at the beginning or the initial step of the behavioural chain, and once that step has been achieved or mastered to the acceptable level, moving on to the next step. So this is like learning to climb and then perform a trick. First of all, you need to climb the tissue, then you can perform the trick. You'll notice that in climbing and performing a trick, the climbing is reinforced by not falling off, and the trick can then be reinforced. The trick is either performed or not performed. This is one of the other key points in chaining, that you need to reinforce the performance of the component behavior at each step in the process. In backwards chaining, we start with the final step in the behavioral sequence or the behavioral chain. So in silks, for example, some of our tricks start quite high up with the tissues wrapped around us in a particular way. When we're first learning the trick, we'll get into that lock or that hold with the tissues in the easiest, simplest way, and then we'll perform the trick. Once we can perform the trick really well, we'll then get into the initial starting position in a more advanced way or a more technical way. This is an example of backwards chaining because we start with the final product, the trick, and then we work our way backwards. To summarize, if you're interested in using chaining to develop a new behavioral sequence for yourself, the first step is to break the behavioral chain into its component parts. The next step is to decide which order you're going to develop your chain in. Are you going to start at the first behavior and then work towards the total behavior? Or are you going to start at the end and work backwards all the way towards the beginning behavior? The next step in deciding on your chaining procedure is to make sure that you're reinforcing at every step along the chain. So for me in silks, the reinforcement was twofold. There was both positive and negative reinforcement. The negative reinforcement came in the form of avoiding hurting myself or falling off the tissue. By avoiding these things, by performing the steps in the chain effectively, I was able to escape those negative consequences, meaning I was more likely to perform them in the future. There was also some positive reinforcement. I experienced lots of fun, a sense of pride and satisfaction, um, good feelings as I performed the steps in the sequence, and sometimes even social reinforcement. People would clap or say that I did a good job. So if you're using chaining, either on yourself or for your colleagues or your friends, you might think, what's the reinforcement at each level? How does each step in the behavioral sequence cue the next step? And how are you reinforcing that? Make sure that you're monitoring the results and refining your procedures if required. So once I was able to perform a set of tricks together on the silks, I then had my coach point out sometimes when my foot wasn't flexed or pointed properly, or when I did too many movements to get into a particular position. And that's a way of refining to make sure that all of the behaviours are leading towards the total task behaviour that you'd like to see. After you've learnt your new skill using behavioural chaining, you may want to perform it, whether it's performing the behavioural chain of writing an essay in an exam, or running a meeting in front of your boss, or, like I did, wanting to perform my circus routine in front of a group of people. And that can bring about a bit of performance anxiety. In behaviour modification, we think about performance anxiety as a response to stimulus. So the stimulus could be butterflies in your tummy, sweaty hands or tight muscles, flushed face, shallow breathing, rapid breathing. They're all unpleasant symptoms that we want to avoid, and so therefore we avoid the situation that we associate with the creation of those symptoms or bodily sensations. Once you've created a SUDS scale with these hierarchically organized list of experiences, behavior modification would suggest that by working through them, going in order, we can diminish our fear of these situations. That can be a little bit of a scary prospect. So how do we work towards being able to do that? Well, we learn some skills to be able to be relaxed while we're doing it. It could be progressive muscular relaxation. So there's lots of different resources online that you can find to walk you through how to do that, but it involves tensing your muscles and then relaxing them. You might also focus on developing some good diaphragmatic breathing. So one way to do this is to place your hands on your belly, your heart, inhale, and slowly exhale and release. And you can do this in the moment itself. So for example, you could do this in an exam. Take a few diaphragmatic breaths if you notice yourself experiencing the symptoms of anxiety during your exam. But it's also great to do this while you anticipate or imagine doing the exam. A thing that I found really helpful with preparing for my silks performance was mental rehearsal. During the week, in the lead up to my performance, I would think about each step in the routine. I would think about where I was going to put my hands, what my legs would be doing. I also imagined there was a group of people watching me. At first, this started to make me feel quite anxious, but as I stayed with my anxiety and tried to relax my breathing, relax my muscles, I started to feel a bit better. So there you have it. 2 different techniques from behavioral modification, chaining, and some techniques or ideas around performance anxiety. I hope that you find them useful and that you can really put them into practice in whatever skill or behaviour you'd like to learn and perform in your school or workplace.